All right, so once again, welcome to the Adjunct Fall 2022 orientation. So glad that you're with us. You play an essential part in the university, so I'm glad that you're here. We are going to move right through uh, the agenda that was posted on our CTE website, knowing that we all have a lot to do. But I'm glad for any sacrifices that you have made. So with this welcome, I'm going to yield the mic over to our instructional development staff members here at the Center of Teaching Excellence, and that will be in the person of Casey Carroll. Casey?
Hi, everybody. Welcome. My name is Casey Carroll. I am an instructional designer with the Center for Teaching Excellence. We are very excited to have you with us. So to get us started, I'm going to be doing a little bit of an overview of Blackboard, which is our learning management system. With me in the chat will be Dr. Aisha Haynes. She will be helping me out with some links and also helping me answer some questions in the chat. So as we get started, I'm going to pull up a quick little poll. I thought I had a couple more minutes. It's a little tricky to line these things up with too much ahead of time, but I'll be able to show you how you can do a poll pretty quickly while also vamping to occupy your students. All right, so got a quick little chat in here. So I want to kind of get a sense of, for all y'all, we got about 50 people. Will you be teaching face-to-face this semester? Will you be teaching in an online type format? Or will you be doing maybe a combination of both face-to-face online? All right, yeah, seems to be mostly face-to-face, which is great. Great, thanks everybody. I'm gonna go ahead and do that. We've got most people are teaching face-to-face only. Which no matter which method that you're using, so that does help me with kind of prioritizing what things that I want to show you today. With no matter what method that you're using to teach, you can still use Blackboard as a method to share things, share instruction materials with your students, have them turn in assignments, use it as a communication tool. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. All right, great. So as we go on, so I am definitely a please interrupt me as we go person. So if you have questions as we go along, please pop them into the chat or raise your hand in the, you might still see my face, you might see my profile a little bit because I've got two screens going, so I can also be monitoring the participants. So if you want to raise your hand, if you want to ask a question, if you want to pop it into the chat, and my colleagues can let me know that there's something going on, we can take care of all of that. So please let me know. So I'm just for a second going to work on the assumption that you don't know much about Blackboard. So we'll kind of dive into it. Also, if you, just to let you know, if you do not currently have access to Blackboard, that might be possible if you haven't kind of finished your paperwork and officially gotten hired. If that's the case, you shouldn't panic yet. Definitely make sure to contact your department, check with them on what your hire date is. If you're still having trouble getting into Blackboard, you can let us know or contact IT. So your department would be the first group to check on for that. So if you've never logged on to Blackboard before, you can go to blackboard.sc.edu. That will take you right to our login page. You can log in with your one sign-on, right? So it's your username and password that you should use pretty much for everything. When you come in here, this is our institution page that will have all sorts of different resources that you can check out. Over here, you also have a profile page. In here, you can actually click on this little edit sign, and you can upload a picture if you haven't done that already. So that can help, especially if you are teaching online. It can help give your students a little bit of a human face with some of the things. And even if you're not teaching online, if you're using something like discussion boards, it'll kind of put your face up there with all of your different communications. So when you come to the courses page, so this is where you're going to be spending most of your time. The courses page gives you a global view of all of your courses. So the default is this list. You can also toggle to grid. I like grid better. And then you can also use the star here to favorite your courses. So if you have been adjuncting for us for a while, or you have a number of courses that are available to you, if you only have 2 courses, it's probably not necessary, but otherwise you can use the favorite to make sure that that is something that is easily accessible to you. If you're somebody with a bunch of courses in your profile, like me, you can also search. So I searched my last name, and so that brought up the sandbox that I want to use to help y'all with showing you a little bit of a demo. So, and I'll explain what sandboxes are here in a second. So before we dive into some details, I want to ask y'all another question. So you can throw into the chat, what do you want to do in Blackboard? So how do you plan to use Blackboard this term? And this may be things that you've done in the past. This may be something like, you know what, I'd really like to do this. This is something that I would want to know. So what are some of the things that you're thinking of trying to use Blackboard for this semester? You can add those into the chat. And given our limited time frame, I'll be doing more of an overview, but I will be providing you with some resources and some other things that you can use to go to a little bit more of a deep dive. Okay, awesome. Zachary is kind of just getting refreshed. Assignments, test grading, like assignments, documents, post documents, all the things. Awesome. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through, since we were able to get started a little bit early, I'm going to go through and kind of do my overview of the various pieces that I was planning to overview. And then if we have time, I can kind of we can fill it with whatever we have left, right? So if we have some additional time, being able to maybe demonstrate some specific things. This page here, so there's a couple of resources that CTE has available to you. And one of them is being able to create a sandbox course. So if you don't have access to your course yet, or if you have a place where you want to be able to update everything that you're doing without maybe getting into a live course, we can help get you a fake course that you can start with if you need to share materials, anything like that. So that's something that we can help set up for you. And we also have access to a template. So this is not the standard default. This is a template that we have created that we can also get you access to. So if Aisha could throw the consultation link into the chat box, if you're interested, either now, we'll have this link up a couple times today, but if you want to get access to our template, you can let us know and we can help you get access to that and help you get everything set up. So you can go to the little consultation thing, let us know. You can also just email the CTE. So another resource that we have, if you could go to the quick start guide into the chat. I'm going to be kind of running through this, but we also have a quick start guide as well as a website of resources. So that link is in the chat as well. This will give you kind of more step-by-step things. So if you want to know how to get started with certain things like setting up the test, all that kind of stuff, this will actually have written instruction if we go a little too fast. So one thing that I want to show y'all is over here on the left-hand side, all of your courses will come with a menu. So the defaults will be a little bit different, but it'll look something like this. There's kind of 2 types of things over here on the menu. So one of them is the content area. So for example, so this is a kind of area where you would be able to add content. You'll be able to let students access different pieces of your course here. So you can link to tests, discussion boards, different kinds of assessments, all of that, which we'll go into a little more here in a second. The tool link is something like Blackboard Collaborate Ultra, which I'm not going to click on this link because but it brings you to a specific tool, or also it brings your students to a specific tool in the course. So you can have content links over here on the side and tool links. You can change the menu defaults. So you can add in new pieces up here at the top. You can also rearrange pieces, and you can hide. I'm not going to do that one. You can also hide pieces if you're not ready for your students to see them yet. So this is the general menu. Down here is the instructor menu. So this is what we call control panel. Under control panel, you have the main area that you'll want to check out here is course tools. So there's a lot of different things here. The big things that you'll want to access through here would be discussion board, Blackboard Collaborate. So all of these tools are available for you this direction, even if they're not available to your students through the general menu. So Blackboard Collaborate. You can access Safe Assign, which is a tool that you can use to do plagiarism checks on Word documents, PDFs, so anything that is like a written assignment, you can set that up. There is also a cool thing called Photo Roster. So I don't know that I have anybody in here. Nope. So that didn't work. But it will work in your course as long as there are students enrolled. So what it does is it actually pulls a roster using photos of your students from the USC system. It's usually when they get their Carolina card, it'll show up. And so you can actually see their faces and names before the first day of class. So I like to print it out, and you can actually use it to help you take attendance the first day of class, especially maybe a larger class. Same thing with if you're teaching online, that can help you to humanize your students, get a little more information about them. So I'm going to go back up here. So the control panel also has where you access the Grade Center. I'm not going to go into detail in the Grade Center today because that is just that would take all of the rest of our time to be able to do that. But we have some resources and some other possibilities. If you want some help kind of setting up your Grade Center, that is a great thing to do, consultation with an instructional designer or with your or with Blackboard support. We can definitely help you go through that because it can be a process, especially depending upon how your course is set up. But this is how you get to it. Same thing with users and groups. You can come down here and you can see all the users in your class. As you can see, I have just me because this is fake. All right. So as you can see here in our template, we have kind of three major areas. We have the getting started section. So we've got an area where we've given, this is built out for a fully online course. And so you probably don't need to put all this kind of detail in here for a fully face-to-face course. But you may want to add your syllabus. You may need to put some important course information, especially if you want to give that to your students before you meet them. You could put information about you, and you may want to create course modules where you're able to, a lot of you mentioned uploading content, right? So we're going to do that for a couple minutes. So if you're inheriting a course, or if you've taught the same course in the past, or if you're getting a course from somebody else, we do have the ability to do a course copy. So that, again, is a little bit into the weeds, but I want y'all to know that it's an option. If you want help with the course copy, you can let us know and we'd be happy to walk you through it. So you can get that. So you don't need to, if you've already built out things or somebody else is giving you some material, you can definitely get that moved over into your course. So I'm going to go in here. So as you can see, I've got here, so I've actually created folders. So one of the ways we can organize is we have folders here. And then within a folder, you can create items. I can see the question in the chat. So Dolores, yes, actually. So if you can see, so basically, I think it's like 10 years worth of things are in the system. So it should be available. So if you are no longer in the old course, right? So it might still be associated with your ID name. So if you can still see it in your list, then you'll be able to do the course copy yourself. So what I would recommend, so we can kind of check into it for you, is if you want to send us an email or submit something to that link that I should put into the chat, Wes can get in touch with you and we can help you figure out your particular details and make sure that you get what you did in the past, so we can help you with that. Hi, Carol. Did you have a question?
Yeah, how do you create the folder? Is that under build content?
Yes. So under build content, so creating a folder is just this content folder.
Oh, okay.
And so you just put a name on it, and then you just click submit, and then it creates a new folder for you. Well, you have to actually put in a name.
Okay. Okay. That's a good name, whatever.
So, exactly. And then it shows up here. Anytime you add something new to a content area, it'll show up here at the bottom. And then the items here, it's the same thing. So under build content, you do have an option between item and file. So the main difference here is an item is essentially like a text box that you can include attachments to, but it does give you the ability primarily to create things like this. A file is just a file. So it would create something here that would just be, it would just basically be the name of the file and the file itself. And so when you click it, it would just kind of take you directly to kind of an uploaded version of the file. I prefer to use item because it allows you to add more information to it. So, and it allows for a little bit easier manipulation. So that's my preference. So let's see. So,
well, thank
Zachary,
you.
Of course. Thanks for asking. So Zachary, I would start with, if you want help, if you want to get a copy of a previous course, you basically need permission from a previous instructor in order to use their materials. So I would start, if you have those resources, then I would talk to those people. And then if you don't know those resources, I would start with your department and say, hey, is there anybody I can talk, who's taught this before? Is there anybody I can talk to? And they should be able to connect you with those resources, kind of interdepartmental or in your department. And then if you need help with the logistics of getting it from one course to another course, we can help you with that part. And so a module and a file are different because a folder, or so under creates, so I guess the module, so there's a learning module, kind of, it acts kind of like a folder. I don't love them personally, so I have a tendency to just stick with folders and items. It kind of helps simplify things. A learning module or a module page is really weird, so don't use that one. But a learning module will kind of act like a folder. It'll allow you to kind of make things somewhat sequentially, and it just kind of looks differently than a folder. If you're not sure, I would set up both of them, right? Or I would, not all the way, but I would open up a module, set it up, add some things to it, see what it looks like, and then you can kind of get a feel for which one that you like better for your own style. Let's see, where are we at time? So within your module folders, it's great to kind of give an overview. You can include, so I basically have only items in here, but you can create, you can add PowerPoints in here, you can add Word documents using an attachment to these items. This is also where you can add in your different, yes, thank you, Aisha. This is a folder, but I've called it module, right? So this is the folder tool that I've named something else. So the difference between, so this module overview is just the title that I've given this particular item. Same thing with review course information. This is the item tool. I've just called it of something else. Same thing up here under build content. If you're going to be using videos, there's a couple of different things that you can do. If you are using videos that you've created, I do recommend that you kind of host them somewhere else. If you need help with making videos, let us know. We can get you connected to the right resources. And so we would recommend that if you're hosting it somewhere like YouTube, if you can actually come to build content, go to YouTube video, and you can actually search YouTube. And it will give you the ability to just kind of connect it in and link it in through there. Same thing if you're using a regular vid or a different video, a non-YouTube video, you can use a web link, and you can upload videos, but it is better to kind of put that somewhere else. And if you need help with kind of video storage or creation, we can help you do that. So yes, so I have used this tool. So this is a folder, and I have called it module 1, but this is from build content. This is a content folder that I've created. So students can see anything. So you can hide things from students. By the default, it's generally available to students. But you can, when you create it, you can create the opportunity down here at the bottom, permit users to view this content, yes or no. You can turn that on or off. You can also use these dates. So you can say, okay, so I'm going to have module 1 open, but I'm not going to have the rest of the modules open until the second week of class. You can set that up with these dates down here, setting that availability. Availability does work in like a gatekeeping kind of a situation. So if you hide a content area on the left, anything in the content area is hidden. So if you've hidden course modules, don't go in and hide all these individual folders. That's just extra work. Same thing within the folder. If you've hidden the folder, they don't have access to the things within that folder. All right. So under assessments, we have a few different options. Unless we have some time, which we might, I'm going to just kind of do a general overview of these. So under assessments, we have tests, we have survey, assignments, pretty much. So under tests, this is where you'll create tests and quizzes. So this is a test tool, but the way that you use it may vary. So you can use it for quizzes, you can use it for tests, you could use it just if you wanted to have 3 short answer questions, but it's more of an essay kind of an assignment, you could still have them use this tool to submit their answers. So you can access it this way, and this is how you add it to your students. You can also access the tests and different assignments through these tools. So I like to come into tests, and I will make my test over on this side. So you go to build test, and then you can create your questions. I'm not going to go into the details of that right at this exact moment, just because we don't have time, but this is where you can set those up, and then you link it over here. So assignments, you just create from this site, and this is anywhere that you want to just have your students upload a file, and it can be any type of file, but an assignment is a document that is turned in and only you can see it, right? So their fellow students won't be able to see it. So that'd be a good use for assignment, would be anything that you just want for your eyes. Discussion boards, you can come over here to the discussion board tool, and you can create forums, add a name to it, and then you can check out some of these things. So this is, you'll want to make sure, if you want it to be graded, you can add the grading option. And generally speaking, most of the defaults will be fine. I like to allow members to subscribe to forums because it allows you to get a message when students post. So you may not want to do that for everything, but if you use something like a question and answer discussion board, which we do sometimes, like a course cafe, then they'll be able to, you'll be able to get a message, so you don't have to check it like every single day to make sure that they get that information. And then when you're in your course module under tools, this is where you can add the discussion board link in here for your students. There's a couple of other tools. So things, especially with this version of Blackboard, there are blogs, journals. VoiceThread is a video creation tool that is used for assignments. So you can add some instruction materials and your students react to them. So let's see, so are there anything in the chat I need to answer? It looks like Aisha's got it covered. Actually, there are some test generators. They're a little iffy. So if you want some help with creating tests in Blackboard, you can let us know and we can help you with that. Let's see. So the other thing that I want to show y'all is a couple of communication tools. And then we'll do, so 6:10, right? So I have a couple minutes. So I have actually I actually added a tool here to announcements. So when you create an announcement, you can give it the ability to, it will post here for students to see, and you can also send it as an email. So this is how I like to do all of the communication in my courses, is I'll post an announcement and send it as an email, so they will have a record of it here in the course, and they will also get that email sent directly to them. You also have the ability to send emails to students. So if you go down under course tools to the send email function, you can go to all users or student users, and you can send emails that way. I only use the as an announcements tool. Some people like to keep this kind of a communication. If I'm emailing a student directly, I will just do it in my email, just because it helps me stay a little more organized that way, but each to their own. One thing I do want to make you aware of is there is a tool. So sometimes students may use something called course messages, because from the institutional level, so the non-course level, students have a way of seeing messages. And so they will sometimes send messages that way. But if you're using this version of Blackboard, the course messages come in here and you don't really get a notice about it. So if students, so if a student says that they've messaged you, this is possibly where it's gone. It's very uncommon, but just want to let you know that this does exist in Blackboard. But announcements is a great way to start. So let me check the chat here. So yeah, so to add on to Aisha's for Mary Louise's question about survey results, the survey results as immediate as your students reply to them, right? So you can send out a survey, but when your students complete the survey, you will be able to see it immediately in Blackboard, but if they don't complete the survey, you won't. So it just kind of depends on how fast they do that. And then we got the wikis in there. Great. So we have a couple of minutes. So is there what questions do y'all have? Is there anything, you got about 7 minutes, so is there anything in particular that you would want me to go into a little more detail on? Do you have other questions for us? How y'all feeling? I know it's very fast. Jennifer?
Yes, I would love to know. So many of them want us to use nicknames, and is there a way that we can put that directly into the photo roster, so that we can adjust their name?
So no, at the moment they're, as you can see from here, so the students can do it, right? So if you have additional information, so I can come in here and I can provide another nickname. I don't know how these show up in Blackboard or they don't, but students can add their profile. Students can also, I don't think, okay, not at the moment. I think they're working on also adding pronouns. So if your students want to provide for you, whether they use he, she, they, whatever they use to refer to themselves, I think they're working on adding that. But this is where students can come to add a nickname. You have no ability to change what your students' names say in the system, unfortunately.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. That's very helpful.
Sure. Let's see. I'm going to answer Kelsey's question in the chat real fast. So yes, maybe. So Kelsey's question is, if your course is cross-listed with another course, do you have to update both Blackboard pages? Any course that's cross-listed should be merged on the back end. So if you are showing, so you should only have one page in Blackboard, right? So when you go in, you should only see, it's just popping me up, whatever. If it's an English linguistics cross-list course, you should only see one of those pages and the other one should be kind of folded in to the other one. If you see two, go ahead and let us know and we can help you get in touch with Blackboard and we can figure out what's going on. So what we may need to do is merge them by hand. And so what we'll do is we can actually ask Blackboard support to merge the courses, and so that will create one. So when I get done, I'll actually throw a couple of, because there might be a number of you, so I will put some merged course instructions into the chat when my section is done. And so it's actually very straightforward. And so you can do that pretty easily. But if you have two sections of the same course, and you don't want them to be, and you don't want them to be separate, right? So if you're teaching several in-person sections, you may want them to be separate in Blackboard. Great, have a great time. You can still do a course copy, right? So you can set up one class and then we can copy it over. But otherwise, if you're updating things as you go, you'll need to update each of them as you go. But if you're dealing with a bunch of different sections and you want some help with kind of strategies for that, let us know and we can kind of brainstorm your situation. And then, yes, so Susan asked about sandboxes. We can help with the sandbox score individually. And then I'm going to do some merged instructions in the chat. Great. Hi, Chrissy.
Hi. I just wanted to ask about chalk and wire, and I think that was under maybe the tools that you can use, or maybe under assessments. That's something that I'm being asked to use, and I'm just not familiar with it.
Nope, not even a little bit. So chalk and wire is only used by education. I have no idea about it. So if you want to submit a request to the consultation, we can connect you to the resources that can help you with chalk and wire. Then Dr. Carnes is actually in education. So what you got, Nate?
Well, I'm going to say, without turning on my camera, there is help and assistance in the College of Education to help you merge your chalk and wire data in. You can do it two different ways, but I don't want to use Casey's time to go through all of it. Just know that there is help, and I will be able to help you as well.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Awesome. So Aisha will put some resources in the chat. You can let us know if you need specific help with that, and then I would also contact the College of Education as well. Okay, that looks great. All right, great. So I'm about out of time. As I answer any last questions, Aisha, if you could throw the rest of my links into the chat box, that would be great. So these, again, are going to be links for getting Blackboard support help, links to schedule and consultation with one of our instructional designers. We'll be happy to help you with that. And then also that very beautiful, elegant link is directly to our website, where we've got a ton of Blackboard stuff, right? So basically, we've piled a bunch of resources together, and we also link out. So before I relinquish back to Nate, does anyone have any last questions? And if you still have questions about Blackboard stuff and you want to throw them into the chat, feel free to do so, and I can answer them as we go along. All right. And I will go ahead and throw it back to Nate. Thank y'all so much. I look forward to getting to know y'all.
Casey, thank you so much for what you have presented. I know it's going to be very helpful to everyone, regardless whether you're working face-to-face or online. Okay, just a moment before I move on. I'm hoping that everyone learned something about someone else in your group. And I just want to say, this is just one of these things. Casey didn't have time to talk about everything with Blackboard Collaborate Ultra, but you can put students into breakout groups for smaller group discussions, as I did. And I just want to say something about why I did it. I've been teaching over 40 years, not all at the university. I've taught in middle school, did some work with high school students before I came to the university level. So I have teaching in my background. But what I have found over the years is that it's helpful to give students a chance to network and talk with each other in the class, even in a large class, to build a sense of community. And I'm very big on building sense of community in my classes, and that's why I do things like this. So my whole point is just about everything I do in my courses, there's a reason that I have behind it. There's a philosophy that guides me to do what I do. And I'm encouraging you to think the same way. That makes your effectiveness more purposeful, and it can lead to some great things. So that's what I want to say about that. Okay, moving on, because I am limited on time as well, and we will be hearing, we have another presenter coming along. So I want to raise this question real quickly, and if we won't have time for everybody to respond to it, but if there are a couple responses, you can signify by raising your hand. I have 4 different scenarios here in front of you, and I want to know, what does pedagogy look like? So I'm going actually beyond just asking you what is pedagogy, but I'm just going to ask you, what does pedagogy look like? You have a large picture to the left, and then you have 2 pictures in the upper right-hand corner, and the 4th one down below. Okay, Susan responds, all of these in the chat. Anyone else want to put anything in the chat or raise your hand? Okay, thank you, Raymond. Thank you, Juliana and Chrissy and Horst. Oh, Horst, would you open your mic just for a moment and say a little bit more about it depends?
Well, it truly depends what kind of lesson it is. If it's a lesson of introduction of new concept, then you might be more inclined to do a little bit of a little bit heavier on the lecturing side. But if it's about reinforcing concepts, then you're going to do more collaborative, or maybe more towards direct getting feedback, immediate feedback, like in the top right picture, you know, like pointing, calling out the student individually eventually. And then of course then is that other type of lesson, which is like review in order to preparation for an assessment. So it really depends by the type of lesson. There's no one single answer, and you can actually, during a same lesson, you might have to improvise and adapt to the situation. if you realize that it doesn't go, you may have the best intention with the lecturing, and then you see all this stairs, this like deer in a headlight, and then you realize that you must shift gears. Okay, we need to take a step back and we have to switch it around. Maybe we're gonna have to do some other teaching method in order to get the message across, or at least, or actually the purpose being for the students to learn something.
Okay, thank you very much. Great, great. I appreciate, yes, I agree with Juliana. Well said. Well, let me go on back. Someone is taking my slides here. Um, so pedagogy really is the method or practice of teaching, particularly in an academic setting or when you're trying to get across a theoretical concept. Now, for those of who have responded, all of them, that would be the best answer. Okay, now going back to what Horst was saying, Horst was talking in under the umbrella of pedagogy, because pedagogy is a broad umbrella, but there are different facets, different areas of pedagogy. And so, Horst, I appreciate the rationale that you gave for using one instructional strategy over another strategy. But pedagogy is having that knowledge to do that very thing. Okay, so it is a broad umbrella. And that's why I want to move into this part. So, Horst, you're actually helping me move along, and I appreciate that. Here's one thing I want to impart to you as you begin your experiences with adjunct teaching, or for some of you to continue. I have found this particularly helpful even working with pre-service teachers. Knowledge is power, as it says here on the PowerPoint. As you're making those switches, and this was evidence again in Horst's comments, that it's helpful to get to know the students. Well, let me go back and start this way. To know yourself, who you are, what do you bring to the table, what do you know about the content that you're teaching. Hopefully that is sufficient for what you're going to deliver, but it also will relate to how I will deliver it. So knowing myself, knowing my students, and knowing pedagogy. Now, what's hidden here under pedagogy is also another area within pedagogy called content pedagogy, which is related to instructional strategies that are particular to the discipline that I am teaching. So all that knowledge in these three areas will lead to success. Okay, now I'm going to advance the slide.
Yeah.
And I'm going to draw from the words of Sun Tzu, a 3rd century Chinese warlord. And as it says here, excuse me for reading it, because I know you can read, but he did say, if you know yourself and you know your enemy, you have no fear of the result of 100 battles. If you know yourself, but not your enemy, for every victory you will sustain defeat. And finally, he wraps up this part, although he says a lot more. If you know neither yourself nor your enemy, defeat is certain. Now, we don't have a whole lot of time, but is there any taker for how this might apply to me teaching in my classroom? Yes, get to know the students. So here is what I call the Carnes adaptation or modification of this, because students, yeah, students should not be considered as our enemies. If anything, I do consider them as co-learners. So here's my adaptation, that it's about going back to that Venn diagram. It's about knowing yourself, your students, and the pedagogy that you're using. Okay, and I won't read everything that's on the slide here, but just to acquaint you uh, to my thinking, my takeaway from Sun Tzu's philosophy, that portion of his philosophy of war. It applies to teaching, but not in an adversarial manner. So the more you know, it does matter. Yes, and I appreciate the messages that I'm seeing in the chat. Yeah, don't hesitate in letting students know you through your pedagogy, right? In fact, Harry, that stood out to me because I share uh, some things about myself that are pertinent to the course. So, you know, I've taught a course once. I said, now, don't worry. I know this is kind of heavy, especially when I'm teaching like some physics. I said, I have struggled with physics before, so if you struggle, I understand. I will meet your needs as best as I can. That helps relax the students, and that's one of the things they like. Do you care about me? Okay. So, just moving on with that, we'll have the questions and comments later. But what I want to do now is go and share my screen just for a moment, because what I want to do is share with you um, a resource that you can use over and over again. So I'm hoping that you can see my screen now, in which I'm on the CTE page. We're right here at the adjunct orientation schedule. What you will see here when you go to our Center for Teaching Excellence web page, you will see a host of things on the left here. One's about faculty orientation. We're here at Adjunct Faculty Orientation, where we are today. And if you go down, there's the events calendar. I'm going to click on that. On the event calendar, you will see, by the way, there's Casey. Hey, Casey. You will see events that we have scheduled throughout the fall semester. These are sessions. Some of them will be in person only. Some of them will be virtual, which means wherever you are, you can jump on and join the session just like you did today. And then some will be hybrid, both in person and virtual. I encourage you to join as many sessions that you can. And like I say, they're throughout the semester. I'm going thumbing through kind of quickly. And then I'm going to come back here. There are certificate programs that you can join and be a part of. And I clicked on one, which is diversity and inclusivity, integrative experiential learning, and some general pedagogy. We have also coming up will be the October Best Symposium on Teaching. That will happen on October the 21st. You can click on this. I'll just go ahead and click on it real quickly. You can see the information here. Here's our guest speaker or keynote speaker who will be with us. We will be having the door prizes at the end of that session, but here's the registration button that you can click on. For those of you who you have experience that you would like to share, there's a call for proposals. Here's the link to click on to submit a proposal, or we have even short sessions, lightning sessions that we call them, that you can participate in as well. So here's where I want to go to also, teaching resources. There are a bunch of teaching resources here for active learning, which is one of the key movements in higher ed now, different ways to draw your class in regardless of the size. You can click on any of these buttons to gain information and insight to strategies that you can add to your teaching toolbox. And there's some syllabi templates that you can use, and some other things. I want to say real quickly, the online toolbox, we have two of them. One is, well, we have a bunch of them, I'm sorry. We have one related to diversity, equity, and inclusion. We have another on assessment that you can use. I want to point out here real quickly about instructional design. You can avail yourself of that. Also, going back to the address that Aisha posted earlier, we have ID team, Casey, Aisha in the background. They are both members of our ID team. They are more than willing to help you. I've never seen such a group that's so excited about helping people. So they can help you with whatever questions that you have. Okay, so that's going to take care of my part of the presentation. And I'm sorry, I didn't turn my camera on because I wanted to feature what I was showing. But it is now time for me to turn it over to Susan Parday, who is joining us. She is going to share a little bit of her experiences and some advice or tidbits for adjunct faculty, and then we will then move to Q&A. Marcia, so glad you're with us. I'll yield the mic to you.
Hey, Nate. Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be with everyone tonight. Forgive me if my voice breaks a little bit. I'm recuperating, unfortunately, from COVID. So I don't have a PowerPoint presentation for you. Instead, what I'd like to do is just talk with you and share with you 7 tips about being an adjunct instructor. And I'm going to tell you the 7 first, and then I'll go into a little bit more detail about each one. But the first tip is that you always begin your class with the end in mind. And second, you set the tone for how you want your class to run during your very first meeting with your class. So that very first day of class is very important. Tip 3 is that you're going to communicate, communicate, and communicate. And there is no such thing as over communicating with the students. Tip 4 is to foster and develop relationships with your students from day one. And Nate, you set that up beautifully in your presentation, how important it is to get to know the students. Tip 5 is to stay organized. Tip 6 is to link course assignments and discussions to real-world experiences. And like Nate said, not only your experiences, but draw in the students to talk about their experiences as well. And 7, seek out ways to improve your skills and techniques as an adjunct. So let's start with the first tip. And I know it may sound counterintuitive, but you begin with the end in mind. Prior to planning your course, you really need to obtain documents, your course outlines, your syllabi. And by the way, the resources at CTE are phenomenal. Use them. You need to specify what your learning objectives are going to be for each course that you're assigned. And then you need to develop assignments that are going to lead your students to achieve the objectives that you set out, what it is you want them to end the course knowing or being able to do. And also, these objectives, they need to be perceived as relevant to the lives of the students and relevant to their degree. And then also with thinking about keeping the end in mind, you need to develop an extremely detailed syllabus that clearly outlines the course objectives and clearly outlines all of the deadlines and all of the assignments that are due. And that also includes the examinations and other assessment tools before course materials addressed. So that's what I mean by, starting with the end in mind. So that's tip 1. Tip 2, you need to set the tone for how you want your class to run throughout the semester. You need to set that tone during your very first meeting. So you're going to cover your course basics in the first meeting, but it's during that meeting that you've got to set expectations and tone. You should answer all of their administrative questions. You should do housekeeping, let them know where they can go to solve problems, etc. Tell them exactly how you're setting up the course, whether it's lecture, discussion, a combination of all of it. Cover everything as to how you want your class to run. I've been an adjunct instructor now for nearly 8 years, and in the beginning, I'll be frank with you, I didn't buy into the idea of doing a syllabus test or a first day test, and now I do it. And part of it is to encourage the students to pay attention and to attend that first day of class and to read through the syllabus so that they know exactly what the tone is going to be for the class. So tip 2, setting the tone for your class during that very first meeting. Tip 3, communicate, communicate, communicate. This one is so important. I teach face-to-face classes. I teach online classes, and I teach asynchronous classes. And even with my face-to-face classes, I use email to remind students and to update students on any weekly course developments. So I regularly communicate with students through email to provide that reinforcement and to provide that clarification of upcoming course content. It's also a great opportunity to provide positive feedback to students. And I not only provide that positive feedback in email, but it's also good to provide positive feedback within the classroom. So face-to-face, you need to give that as well. And then sometimes you're going to need to have that flexibility on assignments to enhance a student's mastery of the course, especially mastery of the learning objectives. So while your syllabus is critical and very important, keep in mind that there may be times that you've got to adjust those deadlines because perhaps the students didn't exactly grasp the material or they need more time to understand it better. So I want to encourage you to also be flexible and be understanding. You need to prepare students through direct communications for the examinations. And then also talk with them regularly. Be there, arrive to class early. Don't get there right when class begins. Instead, get there early, take that time to talk to students and get to know them. And then prepare time to stay afterwards, 10, 15 minutes after class, because oftentimes that's an opportunity for you to talk to students and get to know them better. So email, critical. Face-to-face communications are critical. Now, not all teachers are comfortable with this. I share my personal telephone number with them, and I do a lot of texting with my students. That is a great way that I communicate with them too, but not everyone's comfortable with that. So again, tip 3, communicate, communicate, communicate. And I'm going to run out of time too. I believe my time finishes up in 2 minutes. But tip 4, going back to that fostering and developing relationships with your students, do that from the very beginning. Start with introductions. Get students their different ways of getting them to get to know each other. And that goes back to building that sense of community. This networking, whenever they're in college, these are their future peers. These are their future opportunities and connections for jobs. And so it's important for students to understand that they need to develop their relationships, not only with you, but with their peers in the classroom. Tip 5, you've got to stay organized. Dedicate the majority of your class time to the content on which the students are going to be evaluated, and always provide an overview of what's going to take place in the next class meeting. And then if possible, complete your grading within 48 hours. Tip 6, link those course assignments and discussions to real-world lives. Draw in not only on your experiences, but on the students' experiences into the classroom. And tip 7, seek out ways to improve your skills and your techniques as an adjunct. as Nate said, CTE has got some wonderful resources. One thing that I want to encourage you to do is establish a relationship with veteran instructors. Find a mentor, read books, get information, make use of the workshops on campus. We are so lucky at the University of South Carolina to have CTE. So those are my 7 tips. And Nate, I'll turn it back over to you.
Thank you so much, Marcia. Okay, so you had opportunity to ask questions during Casey's presentation. We tried to be responsive to you throughout. Marcia, you provided us with some great tips. One thing I want to say is years ago, maybe about 12 years ago, I was leery about sharing my cell phone number with my students, but I took a deep breath and put it in the syllabus. And this is now 2022. I have yet to have anybody abuse my cell phone number.
Yeah.
Actually, some people have contacted me. I've been invited, by the way, to 2 weddings. so,
And
so
I
I didn't
and I
think things would go. Go ahead.
yeah, I was going to say I've reached a point in my career where I don't put my office phone number on there. Instead, I just use my personal cell phone number.
But if you're still a little not sold on that, Dr. Aisha Haynes put in a wonderful tool that you could use called Remind, that you can use that instead of your actual phone number if you chose to do so.
Yeah.
Okay, so please raise your hand if you have a question for Marcia or any of us, and we will do our best to answer. Or did we do a great job of covering everything you could ever think of? Okay, Harry has asked a question. What is the alternative to the cell phone again? In the chat, if you scroll up, you will see where Aisha Haynes has put in Remind is a tool that you can use, and she also included a link that will take you there to set that up for use in your classroom. Yes, Casey, you can use texting apps also. Thank you for that. Or GroupMe, WhatsApp, yes.
The important thing is
Well,
to use a tool that's
go ahead.
comfortable to you.
Yes. And I find the students still know so much more than I do about some of these apps and so forth, and I'm fine. Yeah, carrier pigeons could be messy. Are there any comments that anyone would like to leave with us? Okay, not hearing anything. I would say this was a very condensed session. If we go right back through the agenda, there's much more that Casey could have shared. There's much more that Marcia could have said that would have been immediately helpful. And as I have said, there's much more to pedagogy to talk about. I mean, we take people through degree programs for it. But I'm hoping that something has been said to help you. I appreciate all the comments there where people are appreciative and offering thanks. We appreciate that much. I do want to emphasize CTE is here to help you throughout the semester. Thank you, Marcia, for the plug and for as long as you teach. We don't, as far as importance of helping individuals, we see no difference between tenure track faculty, professional track faculty, or adjuncts. Everybody is important, and it takes all of us to make the students' experiences as powerful, as impactful, as for knowledge growing and personal growth as well. So thank you for the time that you've devoted to attend this orientation. And I I know I and some of the staff are going to stay on even after we sign off, just in case someone has a question that pops into their mind or something that they want to share with us. For now, thank you so much. We're ending about 4 minutes early, but I thank you for attending, and I'll just stick around to see if anybody else wants to reach out.